Good evening and welcome to the Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, September 28th. Thank you for being here in our council chambers, and also we thank the people who are watching on YouTube as well. So with that, Dee, would you please take roll?
Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Chapman.
Present.
Councilmember McCall. Here. Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Records.
Here.
Councilmember Sorensen.
Here.
Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Pat Wright notified us that she could not be here tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse?
So moved.
Moved and second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we go to our announcements tonight. And I'll start with one of them, then we'll have Jake Opgenorth, our commander, give us a report on the shooting that happened on early Saturday morning. But Pullman Police Department has also received many reports of unemployment fraud victimizing Pullman residents. So if you need to report fraud or to see if you may be a victim, the agency to report is to the Washington Employment Security Department. You'll find them online to create an account and to file a report. So Jake, first of all, I know the police department did a tremendous job with one of the things I was asked by one of the TV stations when this was happening. Fortunately, we're in a community where this does not happen on a regular basis. There are a lot of cities where, unfortunately, it happens quite frequently. And so when you have a shooting and you have somebody who is killed and you have another person who's in a hospital up in Spokane, it really hits the community big time. It hits the police department as well. So I was just asking if you'd give the council and the public an update on what has happened in the meantime. I know we had one person in court, but why don't you just give us an update? And again, you did a fantastic job as our acting chief when Gary was out of town. And Gary, welcome back. So,
All right, thank you. So on September 25th at about 12:30 in the morning, our officers were responding to a noise complaint at a large party on Myrtle Street. When they were leaving that party, the officers heard multiple gunshots coming from the sound of McGee Park. The officers immediately went to that area, and that is where they located, his name is Liban Bar. He'd been shot multiple times, and he was being taken care of by George Harris. Officers located a gun with George Harris. They secured the gun. They immediately started first aid on Liban Bar, and at that point, they called for any additional help that they could get. We had WSU PD respond, we had Whitman County respond, and we had Moscow PD respond. So it was great that we had such excellent response with our local law enforcement. Medics arrived and they transported Liban Bar to the hospital. Unfortunately, at the hospital, he was pronounced dead. Right after that happened and medics cleared, we discovered that there was another victim just a short distance away that had also been shot multiple times. We didn't know about him at first because he was off the street and kind of between some cars. So immediately went back into action again, trying to provide first aid. And we had the medics respond, and he was transported to the hospital. And later he was transported to Spokane hospitals with life-threatening injuries. Our detectives responded and they took over the scene and the investigation, and they were able to develop probable cause to arrest George Harris later in the morning when he came to the police department to turn himself in. So he was placed under arrest for assault in the second degree and booked into the Whitman County Jail. So as of now, we don't feel that there's any threat to the community based on what we know so far in the investigation, that this was an isolated incident, an altercation that I guess made it all the way up to gunfire. Our detectives are handling the investigation. That night, the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab responded and helped us with the scene. It was about a block-long outdoor scene, a lot of evidence we had to collect, so thankfully they were able to assist us, And at this time, it's still an active investigation, and we're following the evidence and following the leads, and detectives have the case, and they're working it. So with that, that's what I can share right now, but I'll try to help if you have any questions.
And I realize that there's a lot of investigation going on, so there's some things you can't talk about, but I see Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jake. This is, I just want to commend your officers. I also know fire, ambulance responded quickly as well, along with Whitcomb. Having been, about a block away from this and calling after those shots, it's surprising that it occurred, but Whitcomb was very professional, and you were there right away. I did have a question. You said Harris was taking care of Lee Bon Bar. Is that correct?
Yes, when we arrived, he was kind of cradling Lee Bon Bar. They were friends, and so he was trying to help. He was trying to find help for him. And so that's when the officers found him. He was like, help my friend. And that's what we started on the first aid.
That paints a tragic picture. Thank you.
Brendan.
Yeah, Jake, I appreciate everything you and other first responders did. I was reading the release. It said that the call came in for a report of a loud party, and then as you guys approached, you heard the multiple gunshots. So the calls that came in, it wasn't about the gunshots, so it was just for the party itself?
Correct. We were responding to the loud party. And actually, officers were just clearing that and explaining the warning process to somebody at the party when they heard the gunshots and immediately went to that sound.
Okay. There's no indication that that the size or noise of the party had anything to do with?
I don't know that there's any connection.
Okay, thank you.
With that, again, Jake, thank you for the update. We appreciate that very much. And I know you and your officers put in a lot of hours on this. And
Yep.
they're still doing it as well.
Right.
So, again, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Other items tonight on the announcement page, the City Hall and Pullman Recreation Center is having our first open house on Tuesday, October 5th. You can stop by anytime between 3 and 7. You don't need to have an appointment for a tour of the newly renovated City Hall and Pullman Recreation Building. It's our way of saying thank you to the voters for providing this beautiful facility for us. We really appreciate that. Autumn has arrived and the leaves are beginning to fall. As beautiful as it is, we just like to remind you the property owners should be always cleaning their sidewalks, not only for leaves, but for snow and ice and the other things. But if you want to find out when the residential leaf collection takes place, you can just go online to our city webpage and we'll tell you. Don't bag up your leaves, just rake them right to the street, and our great crews will pick them up. So we thank you for that. And due to the recent increase of COVID-19 cases, Pullman Fire Department has canceled all of their CPR and first aid classes until further notice. The safety of the firefighters and the community is paramount. Hopefully, classes may resume sometime in 2022. With that, we now go to presentations, and we have a number of presentations tonight. First one is about the Golden Shovel, and I've asked Jen Hackman, who is our Economic Development Director, to introduce this particular
Thank you,
presentation.
Mayor, and good evening, Council. Some months ago, Council approved the creation of an economic development marketing plan to help support our business growth and success. Council identified a process to create this plan with the assistance of a consultant and a budget for implementing campaigns. A note of thanks go out to Council members Weller and Sorensen in particular, and as well City Administrator Urban and Mayor Johnson, who helped create the RFP and gave guidance. In June, Council selected Golden Shovel Agency, a firm that is focused on economic development industry, to produce a marketing assessment and plan for Pullman based on primary and secondary research along with industry expertise. Ron Kresha, the agency's COO and CFO, was our main point of contact on the project. And I can tell you he put in a lot of time and a lot of effort into thoroughly getting to know Pullman. He visited our city and was here in person. He conducted surveys and interviews and did a thorough assessment so that he could provide recommendations for us to grow the great things that are happening in our city. That blueprint was completed last week, and it was included in your packets, and I believe we'll have some physical copies coming our way as well. And so with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Ron Cretia to you. He is going to be here virtually to present an overview of the findings and recommendations for the city of Pullman. Off to you, Ron.
Thank you, Jen, and I hope the audio is coming through clear. First of all, just a bit of housekeeping. Welcome to my house, by the way. I just wanted to extend, after spending some time in Pullman and getting to know your community on the streets as well as online, just my deepest thoughts and prayers for your community and going through the tragedy and the events of last weekend. That's difficult, and I can see and hear it in the discussions, and just wanted to let you know that was thinking about you guys on that. I wanted to thank you, Mayor, and the council for giving us the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to walking you through this presentation. I'm going to actually turn my camera off because my screen's a little bit higher and it gets a little bit awkward as I shift my eyes back and forth. So this way you can focus on the blueprint as well, and rather than looking at me. So I'm going to walk through this. I think I have about 15 to 20 minutes, and if there's questions, I'm certainly open to taking those and would like to have that discussion. But let me get moving through so I don't run out of time. So you have in front of you the blueprint document, and I hope you get a chance to read through that. And you can always contact me with questions, as well as Jen, who, by the way, was absolutely wonderful to work with, very easy and accommodating as I went through this process.
Sorry to interrupt, Ron. Are you sharing your screen yet to show that blueprint? Or is that coming up?
Thank you. Let me grab that.
All we're seeing is your name right now.
How's that?
Now, that's a lot better.
Thank you. I do that too many times. I get rolling and then I get the technical piece. Okay, so well, I'll just start with the executive summary, and I'm trying to hit the high points. So it was very obvious in doing this that I believe Pullman can benefit from a coordinated economic development marketing plan. It seems to be there's a consensus around creating a brand style guide and amplifying the Pullman narrative. Multiple groups, and I read many of the reports, talked to some people, they are participating in the business attraction, retention, and marketing, and the responsibility to market the city and its assets and resources still falls within the scope of the city's accountability sphere. So it seems to me that in the conversations I had and the research, that the city taking a clear, direct role in this, in the lead, would be very beneficial. The Pullman taxpayers would be served by a clear brand, a clear message, and a narrative to retain and expand existing businesses and attract new businesses. One of the things that seemed to come out in the survey very clear, and in many of the conversations, was that Pullman should simply move away from the if we should do this to when can we do this, and then identify there's an identified desire for action. It was very clear that I'll say it this way, and you'll probably see it a couple times. Nobody said to me we should do nothing. It was always Pullman needs to move forward. Pullman needs to take some ownership of their brand and message and go that way. Key findings. One of the things that I understand some of the relationships that you have, the city of Pullman with other entities, whether it's the university, other groups and so forth, but there's no downside for the city of Pullman to do an aggressive branding and marketing campaign. By taking the lead as the city and really owning that process, it will strengthen the other groups' actions and in fact can help leverage them, but there really is no downside. In other words, it will not diminish anyone else's efforts. Creating a separate Pullman economic development website I give a strong recommendation because that is critical to developing the new brand and identity. This gives an anchor. This gives a place to start that conversation in a safe way to develop that brand and narrative. Again, there's an overwhelming desire, and this came out strong, to share the Pullman experience. In the many, many conversations I had, people were almost falling over themselves, ready to tell and express their passion and why Pullman stands out, why there's wonderful things there. And that should go beyond just conversations. To me, we should be taking those to broader markets. There's a very substantial pride in the community, and I don't think I'm telling anyone here anything new, and an appreciation for the distinctive values. There were many differences that were pointed out, and people were quick to point out there might be distinctive values among different groups, but there was an appreciation for those and the desire to tell that as part of the narrative. One of the things that I want to make sure that we call out is Pullman, the city of Pullman needs to own their new brand and narrative and create a shareable content for collaborators and partners. This style guide and narrative will ensure consistency when content is shared. And just to be very clear on this point, by creating that brand, getting consensus, collaboration amongst the groups, and getting a narrative that people can get behind, and then making that very easy for other people to participate in sharing that will go a long way in helping Pullman move their message and their marketing efforts forward. Developing and executing the recommended strategies will help Pullman's economic development efforts and personnel by having a plan in place that's actionable and measurable, but flexible enough to accommodate the city's growth. There's a lot coming very positively for Pullman. That was very clear, and there's a lot to celebrate. And the biggest challenge that I see is, in a lot of ways, that's being celebrated in a vacuum when we should be celebrating that to an auditorium of the world. It should really be amplified. I want to talk a little bit about some of the data points and the metrics before I go into some of the goals that we've identified. When I looked at the SEO traffic and the digital footprint, and this is, there's a deeper dive in your report, and I should say, in no way was I trying to diminish any other efforts of any other groups, but I did want to look at the footprint. I want to look at all the different entities that are talking about Pullman. One of the things that I try to do is if you can imagine 3 circles in a Venn diagram, and that is, how are the people of Pullman, closest to Pullman, talking about Pullman? How is the rest of the world talking about Pullman? And then we want to try to come up with that shared brand and narrative that's most effective. How should we talk about Pullman? So I look at all the main entities that may be driving website SEO and social media traffic. And when I examine the city of Pullman through their city municipal website, there's an estimated 15,000 clicks. Now that's SEO traffic that is generated through the search engine. So there's an opportunity monthly, a potential of 15,000 people to click on search engine results that would lead them into Pullman. When I looked at the Pullman Chamber, it's about 9,600. The SWEDA is only 273. The Port of Whitman is 286. And then the Whitman County website is 6,800. So I'm looking for where the major draws of traffic would be. And of course, Pullman is coming up with 47% of those. So then I wanted to look and see what kind of search results are generating an interest where someone may click. So when I looked at the city of Pullman, the top keywords, the #1 keyword that's generating a search result right now is Bill Pullman. Your #2 is Linda. I believe Linda is a training site on the city municipality site. And then Pullman, so you can see just going down, these are the top keywords that are coming up where people would have an opportunity to click and go into the website. The most frequent pages through the search engine, through the SEO traffic that's being displayed, homepage, Pullman Transit, you can see the list. What you can see, of course, is this is a very, your city website is a very municipal-driven website, as it should be. What you're not seeing here is much in terms of economic development, business retention, workforce, and so forth. Because people are going to the city municipal site and clicking on search results because the answers that they want are municipality related. When I looked at the chamber and other websites, you can see the top keywords that are generating search engine results and links, grocery outlets, football, Pullman weather, but you get a chance to see the list here again. Again, the absence of really economic development, business terms, shows that Pullman in the area is not ranking very high. In other words, we're not giving enough attention or enough search engine results for other people to find their ways into your business resources and business retention and so forth. So that could be improved upon with a strong coordinated marketing. When I looked at a news review, and this was a fairly, it was a very simple experiment and simple sample size, but I just went out and grabbed 138 articles, and the reason it was 138 because I did about 11 months. I went all the way back to the beginning of February, and so I was getting close to that, not quite 12 months, but I pared it down a little bit just so I could get through all the stories, because pre-January, February, I just didn't get those in the results in time. So it's a little bit shorter than 12 months, but I grabbed just 138 stories, news headlines that were being generated by the search engines when a user would look at Pullman. And you can see these are the topics as they're coming up. It's no surprise that WSU and WSU sports take up a large share of that. And then you see it's public safety, city council, and you can see down the list as those break out. What this really is pointing to, and I would spend some more time with this, is again, the lack of stories and headlines that are being written about the business opportunities, the economic development future and potential of Pullman. I found it interesting, and I added it here because I thought it was kind of comical, but the story about pet hens and the city council popped up in this 138 sample. It's comical because I thought the headline was interesting, but again, I would like to see, or my recommendation would be that at the end of a 9-month or 6-month marketing efforts, you're starting to see the business topics, the recreation topics, the quality of life cropping up more towards the top and taking on more frequency and finding their ways up in this list. So before I go into some of the goals, I want to talk a little bit about the methodology. We identified 100 participants at the beginning for a placemaking survey. I know that in reading many of the reports that you have that Pullman is a little bit surveyed out, but the survey was more for me as I got an introduction to the community and how people were thinking. From the survey, I can then dig deeper into those and look for comments that would invite me into a very beneficial interview. So that's what I did. Is there were some interviews that were identified for me that we wanted to interview, as well as I could take surveys and try to ask more people. It's almost like a journalist approach where you want to dive in deeper and say, why did you say this? What led you to these comments? And really start to understand why people were responding the way they were. The secondary research, I looked at a number of plans that I'm sure you've all seen, and there was a lot of similarities in those, a lot of things that were talked about that you're familiar with that came out in our report as well. But again, the thing that stood out to me the most was, I think in at least 2 or 3 of these reports, talking about some of the disjointed efforts and how that needed to be overcome. So that's why we make a strong recommendation that this is a good opportunity for the city to lead on. I spent 2 days in Pullman, had a great time, by the way. Thank you very much. An incredibly accommodating community. I got a chance to meet a couple of you, and I just can't say enough good things about the people that I met and talked to. So that was a lot of fun. Really got to know the city well, and was very thankful for that trip. The digital footprint and SEO, I then walked through that and spent a considerable amount of time online, just trying to decipher how Pullman's being represented through the search engines and how that could be improved upon. And then, of course, I was looking through Reddit, which is one of the popular places to kind of see what kind of negative comments are out there, and haven't really uncovered a lot. What I'm finding is, rather than really aggressive negative comments, there's just a lack of commentary. And so, sometimes one of the worst things in marketing is not having news at all because there's a silence. And in that silence, there's a void that people fill in with their own comments. And so we would like to recommend that that void in marketing be filled with the good positive things about Pullman. And then, of course, putting the marketing blueprint plan together that you have in front of you digitally, and we'll be sending that copy to you. Okay, so there's a lot of goals, and I'm going to touch upon these very quickly. And I hope I'm not going too fast, but I think I have a considerable amount of pages here, so I want to make sure I get through that. But the number one goal would be your style guide branding, and really taking that process and driving it deep into a collaborative effort and saying, how do we get to something that isn't perfect, but is collaborative and agreed upon? I would love to say that in all the years of doing this, we come out with these wonderful brands that everybody gets behind. That just doesn't happen. But you take all the diverse ideas and you get to the best brand you can, the best narrative, and then you start to improve upon that as the process goes. And we would recommend that at the start of the process. From the next piece, we would create a target audience. So we start to look at what is the audience that we want to begin to attract. And then we start to build out ideal personas. How do those people look and feel and think online? And so we can start to put the content in front of them that will draw them into Pullman. An example I can give you is for one city that we've worked with, we found that there was a considerable amount of interest for pediatrics and dental care for children. And when we looked further in that, what we found was that those searches and those clicks were usually happening from the spouse or a partner in a relationship as they were getting ready to move into a community or look for a community that their other spouse may be moving a business to. So what we started to do was, for this community, was we started writing articles about how you can find the best pediatrics for the area, how moving your kids to the school, and really starting to attract the spouse in a relationship, because we knew they were having conversations with the other person in the relationship about, hey, this would be a great community to move into, or if you're looking to move to a community, maybe we could go here. So it's looking for things like that and building some of those articles so that we can get people's attention, get them talking about Pullman. And the idea is really to get the target audience to think of themselves in Pullman. Can you envision yourself, by reading the content, seeing the videos, as a future Pullman resident? That's really the goal. The awareness goal, you start to leverage your business leaders with an ambassador program. And basically the way this works is you get 9 to 12 people who are committed to pushing the narrative online, and we start using their networks and asking them to share and like and push. And then every 6 months we rotate that ambassador program, because some people only want to be part of something for 6 months. But you keep this active group who are promoting Pullman so that Pullman becomes way more active in the search engines and online, and that's what they'll start to pick up on. Engagement, we take a number of engagement opportunities here to build an image awareness or an advertising campaign to support those targeted marketing. We really want, and we want to leverage your regional partners by providing the collateral and content to be shared through the media channels. We want to create shareable content collateral that's very easy with a style guide to be handed to somebody to say, hey, we're excited about Pullman. We know you're talking about us. Here's how we would like you to talk about Pullman, so that we can really have some consistency and really introduce people into the community with the right message, the right narrative. We know that people are going to understand negative things happen about a community, but the marketing isn't there to do that. It's not there to express that. It's to build the positive side out, to invite them in the community, and then they can start to have those deeper conversations. Number 5, strategic strategic relationships. So as this marketing opportunity is coming together in this campaign, it's having the collateral, having the newsletters, having the shareable content, all of that, so that strategic business relationships can be leveraged, and we can quickly get information out to these relationships, and they can share it with their networks. I'm sure there are many people in the Pullman area, executives who have great networks, and if we can find some of them and allow them to share out their success stories on their networks, that will help drive interest in different areas and through different strategic relationships. Then there's an inbound marketing campaign, and you'll see this in your packet. There's a graphic about this, but the way we do the inbound marketing side is once we start to create interest, we know that there's a very limited amount of time that we're going to get at every touch point. So we do this through a couple of different ways in generating the content. There's also some software that can be leveraged, but it works like this. If you respond to an article that's posted and then you go to the Pullman website, that website will then track you and follow you and see what your interests are and offer you the next content that's similar to that. So if you're looking for a business opportunity or you're looking for retail space, then the next thing that you would see would also be related to that. And we keep walking people down this conversation and trying to give them content that's helpful. It's not an aggressive, it's not an in-your-face, but it really is about offering up content because we know by the search results and the clicks that are happening, what content may be of interest to that user. The goal, of course, at the end of the inbound process is that a phone call or a meeting happens. So after 5 to 7 touch points, we're hoping that they're going to send an email and say, hey, I've been looking on your site, I've been reviewing this, I'd like to hear more about this. And that's the inbound process. And it really is meeting people where they are at and trying to put the content in front of them that is the most useful to the stage that they're researching. And then, of course, there's always the review, evaluate, and adjust. We always want to look at the results, look at the leads, look at what's happening, and find out what's working, what's not working, why not, what should we try, but really trying to figure out what the best course is and adjusting. We do that on a monthly and a quarterly basis because the data is going to point us in some directions, and we want to make sure that we're figuring out what the best path is to get an ROI. A communication process. Always want to develop a strong internal communication process. Once you have a brand and a style and a narrative and you have all that and people are on board, they're seeing the website coming on, then it's really about letting the internal communication process be amplified so people know how they can communicate with people within the city. One of the things that you want to make sure that we have found many, many times is that when people start to investigate a community, the first thing we want to take off their radar is, hey, there's people at the city that may be difficult to deal with. Or there may be barriers. I hear this a lot. Businesses will say, well, there's barriers to me starting in this community. We want to make sure that we're talking about the good things that city leaders are doing, the good things that your departments are doing. In all the tragedy that you just went through this last weekend, you did hear on the other side of this the incredible response and how the community is coming together and how your police department is responding. Knowing that level of trust and response is out there needs to be amplified so people know, hey, this is a community that will respond when I have some type of question. That could be a business opportunity, it could be something else. But really developing that internal communication, and it comes down to trust. It's trying to earn that trust of the community for the leaders and the departments and what the city is trying to push or try to pull together. Goal number 9 would be a needs analysis. So as we pull all this together, we do want to identify a matrix to say, hey, what's possible, what's not possible. There's a lot here. Some of this will be accomplished very easily. Some of it will take some time. But really identifying with a matrix, who's doing what's accountable. We don't want to put this in a way that your economic development, Jen looks at this and goes, oh my gosh, this is too big, it's too much, I can't do it. We don't want that to happen. We want to put this together and say, here's how we can accomplish these goals. Here's what would be needed to do that and what's realistic, because success at the end is what is the most important. I tell many of the clients we work with, and it's actually a a mantra on our team that we believe, and that is we want to make excellent mistakes and not just have mediocre results. We want to really push the envelope and find out what's working because we can leverage those. Positive community relationships. And I understand, there's a campaign side to the city council and all that, but you have city leaders, you have people that have stories and departments, and those people have stories to tell. We want to bring out the human side to them. We want to talk about, the people that run the city and the leaders as human beings who are trying to do the best they can for their residents. And we can talk about their biographies, we can talk about their likes, we can talk about their success stories, and we can start to build that human touch among the leaders that really results in trust. Because from the outside, you want people who are searching into Pullman, and when they start to read that narrative, it has to be genuine, it has to be believable, and it has to cross that threshold of, yeah, I trust that information is correct, and these are really the type of people that I want to make a part of my future. So building that positive community relationships, that positive approach to public relations. I mean, I suspect everybody in this room is doing what they're doing because they really believe in the potential of Pullman. They have a passion, because I heard that many, many times. Let's tell those stories. Let's not let those be hidden in the recesses where people won't find them. So just as a bare bones approach, a very quick framework, we recommend in your marketing plan that you start with an economic development website. Let's start with a site that we can anchor to. We can build a narrative. From there, we would build your brand, your narrative. You have a collateral review. The SEO review would be part of that. And then we do the placemaking and content. You'll find in the digital version of the blueprint, we put this together in a timeline of 6 to 9 months and break it all out for you. And then once we start to identify those audiences and we start to know those personas, we can start to build the attraction campaigns for business retention, for retirees, for some of the audiences that I've heard, and start a very aggressive digital advertising campaign. Many people don't realize or don't really understand, but Google and Facebook ads work, and they work well. Not only do they help get to people the right content, but it gives you great back-end demographics that you can use to build future campaigns on. So we use those very well. The search engines are amazing, and people are using them, and they're on their phones, and we want to be able to leverage those. And then there's ongoing monthly content, digital advertising, placemaking, success stories, and reporting. This really isn't just a one and done, do it in 9 months and hope for the best. It's a build it, put it together, get behind it, and then it becomes a living, breathing marketing organism that we're feeding every month. There's care into it. We're looking at the data, and we're really trying to push this forward so that we can get the best results we can out in the search engine world and online, as well as having your collateral and other pieces in place. So that is the presentation. I hope I came under time. I think I took a couple breaths in there, but I really want to thank you and the community for trusting us, allowing us to come in. And at this point, I think I want to show you one other quick thing that is part of your website. Let me see here. I have to get out of this screen. So I showed this to Jen earlier, and I want to give you an idea of some of the things that happens when you put together a website, or when we put together our websites. So this is one client that we do, and some of the marketing we do for them. And we actually get down to not just the traffic, who's clicking on what pages, the traditional demographics, but we actually use reverse lookup to find out, like for example here, you can see Dynamic Air Incorporated has visited this website, these links, when they visited them. And what this helps us do is understand what content they're using, and it gives us some back-end anecdotal evidence to what's working. So one of the things that we would look for is if Jen would go to a conference and she would start talking to a couple of companies, and then lo and behold, 24 hours later, you notice they're clicking on your website and reading it, that's a great indication for Jen to pick up the phone or someone to pick up the phone and say, hey, I saw you're on our website. Are there any more questions I can answer for you? Did you find what you were looking for? We do that all the time with clients as they start to go through and look for companies and why they're visiting them. It's a great data point. It's a great business intelligence point, and it's used very, very effectively for many folks. So there you go. I don't think I'm hyperventilating too bad. I think I've got enough oxygen, but any questions for me?
Okay, any questions for Ron? Again, it was very thorough. I got through most of it and I still got some more to read.
Good.
Any other comments from the council on this point? Not seeing it. So Ron, again, thank you very much for the presentation. Nathan, apparently. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Ron, had the pleasure of sitting in and talking to you with a business owner and younger individuals, entrepreneur. You know, I have to say, I really thank you for your time coming down here. You weren't skirting around any of the difficult, questions, and I appreciate that. You didn't avoid anything. So I just wanted to thank you for your time coming down here, and this is very, very thorough, so thank you.
Councilman Weller, I really appreciate that. The conversation was fantastic, and your conversation, as well as many of the other ones I had, were very frank and very helpful. So thank you. Thank you for your comments.
All right, and I also want to thank our IT department that got everything working here tonight, and especially to do this hybrid system. So Ron, again, thank you.
Thank you, and again, I wish your community the best as you go through some of these difficult times ahead.
All right. Move for another presentation tonight. This is item number 2 in the presentations. This is the housing legislation update, and R.J. Lott, our planning director. R.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The next presentation on your agenda this evening is an update on 2021 housing legislation. As you all know, affordable and availability of housing is a challenge to many residents statewide as well as in Pullman. This legislative update is intended to illustrate potential pathways that the city of Pullman can pursue working towards minimizing issues related to housing. Some of the legislation may lead to some required changes in the city's municipal code. So for tonight, I've got just about 8 slides, each of them highlighting a bill that is either passed or in the works. So with that in mind, let's get started. Yeah.
Switching over from the other feedback, just hold, sorry. We didn't get that fully set up. Give me about 10 seconds and then go to the next slide.
Thank you. All right, so the first bill I want to highlight, and this is probably the most important one of the entire presentation, is Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5235. This bill has really the primary intent to remove barriers that limit housing options. As we could all probably imagine, there are barriers to entry for those that struggle to find affordable housing. This prohibits cities from regulating or limiting the number of unrelated persons who occupy a dwelling unit. Exemptions include occupant limits in group living arrangements or on short-term rentals, meaning VRBOs or Airbnbs. Other exemptions include occupant load per square foot or applicable health and safety regulations. This took effect back on July 25th and resulted in RCW 35A 21314. Let me read that here for a moment, and it's important. And it reads, except for occupant limits on group living arrangements regulated under state law or on short-term rentals as defined in RCW 6437010, and any lawful limits on occupant load per square foot or generally applicable health and safety provisions as established by applicable building code or city ordinance, a code city may not regulate or limit the number of unrelated persons that may occupy a household or dwelling unit. So what this means for us is that current city code section 17.75075 regulates the number of people that can occupy a dwelling unit, and that relates to what you may know as functional or other household definitions. So you may see that, or you will see that soon before you as a change to the city's code.
RJ, can I just ask one quick question? Some of that has dealt in the past here with parking, because when you have a number of unrelated individuals, they bring 8 vehicles, and they're now trying to park where a single-family home used to be. And
Yeah.
that sort of drove the limitation that we had. Is there anything that addresses parking, or is a city allowed to do parking issues?
Well, as far as the bill is concerned, there is no regulations to parking. However, that doesn't mean that the city can take a closer look as to how many parking spaces would be required per bedroom per se. So if you're anticipating that you have unrelated individuals, which would be easily concluding that there would be more vehicles as you related to, perhaps that is something that we would need to look into further down the road. The next bill is the engrossed second substitute House Bill 1083. This is an act relating to relocation assistance for tenants of closed or converted manufactured and/or mobile home parks. This increases the maximum amount of eligible tenants may receive in relocation assistance under the Mobile Home Relocation Assistance Program when a manufactured home park is or is scheduled to be closed or converted to another use. This requires tenants who received initial cash assistance under the Relocation Assistance Program to transfer title of the home to the park owner, relocate the home, or demolish and dispose of the home within 90 days to receive the remainder of eligible relocation assistance. The Relocation Assistance Program is through the Washington State Department of Commerce. This authorized park owners to seek reimbursement for costs incurred for demolition and disposal of the homes when tenants do not relocate or demolish and dispose of their homes within 90 days of receiving initial cash assistance. This also took effect back on July 25th, 2021. The third slide, the third bill, is the second substitute Senate Bill 5287. This makes several changes to the multifamily property tax exemption program to incentivize the development of multi-unit housing. As far as I can tell, this program is only available to cities located within the Growth Management Act county. Whitman County, as you may or may not know, is not a GMA county. This creates a 20-year property tax exemption for the creation of permanently affordable homes, creates a new 20-year property tax exemption for properties in cities that commit to renting at least 20% of their units to low-income households for at least 99 years if certain transit requirements are met. This also took effect in July 25th, 2021. If you're curious, the process for Pullman to be a GMA city would require Whitman County and all of the cities located within Whitman County to essentially opt in. So it's either an all or none situation for those of us within Whitman County. The next bill is engrossed Senate Bill 5024. This helps builders access more financing for condominium construction. We don't have a lot of condominiums here, but if that's something we want to encourage or anticipate in the future, This is important. This allows for condos to be more affordable by allowing funds deposited for the purchase of a unit to be used for construction costs. It also relieves the party holding escrow funds from the obligation to monitor the expenditure of the funds from liability. This also took effect on July 25th. The following bills in the presentation are not yet adopted. They're in different forms of review. So second, Substitute House Bill 1157 is an act relating to increasing housing supply through the Growth Management Act and housing density tax incentives for local governments. This authorizes counties and cities to establish a real estate excise tax density incentive zone within urban growth areas and provides for the distribution of state real estate tax revenues within such incentive zones. This bill is currently before the House Rules Committee. Substitute House Bill 1100 is an act relating to the sale or lease of manufactured home communities and the property on which they sit. So this requires landlords to provide written notices of opportunity to purchase with respect to the sale or lease of a manufactured home community. This bill provides certain organizations and associations a fixed period of time within which to provide written notice of intent to purchase or lease and make an offer during which the landlord must not make a final unconditional acceptance of an offer from others. Requires good faith negotiations between both the landlords and qualified tenant organizations and other eligible organizations when a landlord sells or leases a manufactured home community or the property on which it sits. This can impose civil penalties for failure to comply and currently sits before the House Appropriations Committee. Senate Bill 5312 is an act relating to facilitating transit-oriented development and increasing housing inventory. Authorizes the use of appropriations to the Growth Management Planning and Environmental Review Fund to fund grants to cities to pay for certain planning-related costs related to transit-oriented development, including sub-area plans and environmental impact statements. Requires the Department of Commerce, that's the Washington State Department of Commerce, to prioritize applications for grants to facilitate transit-oriented development to maximize certain specified objectives in the area covered by the grant proposal. This changes the date from April 1st, 2021 to April 1st, 2025, by which cities must take certain actions related to increasing housing supply in order to be eligible to apply to the Department of Commerce for planning grants under the Growth Management Planning and Environmental Review Fund. This is currently before the Senate Rules Committee. The last bill that I have is Substitute Senate Bill 5390. This also relates to increasing housing supply through the Growth Management Act and housing density tax incentives for local governments. This amends the elements of a comprehensive plan to ensure consideration of multifamily housing units and housing targets. This creates real estate tax density incentive zones within urban growth areas and buildable land areas. This currently is before the Senate Ways and Means Committee. That concludes my presentation. If there happens to be any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay, Eileen.
Yes, thank you. Great report. On the item, the first there on 5235, can we be expecting, do we have a timeline on when we're going to bring city code into harmony with this?
Actually, Laura and I spoke about that this morning, and it should be very, very soon.
Yeah.
I would expect it to be, well, it needs to go through Planning Commission first and then to the City Council. So I would suggest sometime this fall.
So we'll get that amended, but because of the change in state law, city staff are not enforcing that provision of the code.
Understood. Thank you. That's great.
Any other questions? RJ, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is a transportation benefit district defined, established, revenues, operations, and Mike Urban has that report for the council tonight.
right. It's working. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. For you tonight is a shorter than usual presentation from me on a transportation benefit district. We're back into alphabet soup here, TBD, a little different than the last one I was in front of you to discuss, which was the TPA, but you're going to see a lot of similarities between the two, and the fact that we have a Metropolitan Parks District, it's going to look very, very similar. It's just what we can do with the dollars and why. So part of what brought me here tonight was the discussion during budget approval last fall, where this item was specifically identified. It came to you tonight because we wanted it on the heel of the pavement study, because they're directly correlated. So having that out first and then this following behind it made the most sense. And then finally, the third item was during council's goal-setting sessions. It came up several times to look at different forms of revenue, like the TPA, the TBD, and other grants that are out there. So this is a good time to discuss this now. The last slide, if you've looked ahead already, does relate back to the pavement study and kind of where I'm going with this a little bit more broadly, but very specific towards that. So as I go through these things, again, it's conceptual. This is an option for helping with the pavement. There's other options as well, including reallocating parts of our budget to put more towards the pavement. But let's talk to the transportation benefit district point of it now. And all right. So what is the intent behind this? And really that first sentence is the very most important part. Essentially, it's going to allow for a quasi-municipal entity with independent taxing authority to raise revenues for specific transportation projects. Again, a lot like Metro Parks is set up to do this. We can identify specific transportation improvement projects that affect the system. There's criteria for them. But again, it's the state legislature giving the community, the city of Pullman, a chance to put joint efforts in with private and other government organizations to come up with solutions to transportation issues. So what is a transportation improvement? Again, that first sentence is very important through the RCW. It's a project contained in the transportation plan of the state, regional transportation planning organization, city, county, or eligible jurisdiction as identified by that RCW. So the state goes as far as to say, this is what transportation improvement is, and if it doesn't look like a transportation improvement, it's probably not a transportation improvement. But if you look through a lot of this presentation, things like roads, even buildings to house transportation improvement functions can qualify. So it's a very large breadth and depth of things that can be done with transportation benefit dollars. So the jurisdiction empowers legislation. This legislative body has the authority to establish a transportation benefit district. Multiple jurisdictions can get together and do interlocal agreements to create them as well. The boundaries need not include all areas within the jurisdiction. Some choose not to include some boundaries, some include all. And a lot like the Metro Parks, if this were established, this council would serve as the board of the Transportation Benefit District. The last bullet point there, we're going to get into a lot more in depth on a couple other sides, but rulemaking, authority to impose fees, that's why this is established by the state. And I think you've seen locally a lot of question that when we want to do a project, our state legislators and folks want to know, do we have our own transportation benefit district? Are we trying to raise the dollars here locally as well? Okay. So talked a little bit about projects, but here's the how. This is what RCW has to say about the criteria. First was the project an acceptable project, and then does it meet the criteria? So there's 10 items that RCW focuses on, and when you talk about pavement, reducing risk of transportation failure or improved safety, that certainly qualifies. And as you go down the list, there's lots of criteria that can help improve our transportation needs in here that are fairly bright line for this or what other projects would be, including transit. So, check my notes. Yeah, that's it on this slide. So, establishment goes very similar to what we've discussed in the past. Hold a public hearing, make sure that everybody are properly noticed, and make sure everybody for or against has the opportunity to speak and be heard. And then you can adopt an ordinance establishing the boundaries, purpose, functions, and then the activities of what the Transportation Benefit District is to do. The big thing, last bullet point, that the boundaries and activities cannot be expanded or changed without revisiting that process is another important thing. So as we pull in new property for annexation, we want to make sure that we look at the boundaries again. If there's a shift away from what the original intent is, like raising money to redo the roads, but now we want to do some transit type projects, we'll have to revisit this as a board and then do the public hearing part of it as well. So once the Transportation Benefit District is established, there's a couple different ways for creating revenue. The first one is vehicle license fees, and this is your car tabs. This one, you can do up to $20 without voter approval if the Transportation Benefit District wishes to impose that. After the $20 fee has been levied for 24 months, that can go up to $40, again, without voter approval. Going up to $50 or over $40, I'm going to jump down an extra bullet. That does take a little bit more of a different tenor because it could be repealed by voter referendum. So if you can't go up over, you can go up to 50, which would be up over 40 after 24 months, but there is the chance of a referendum to repeal that by the community. And then if you want to put something out in front of the voters, up to $100, and that just is a simple majority vote of the community to do that. So that's the vehicle fee portion of it. The next is a sales and use tax. Right now we have a 7.8% sales tax in this community. Of that, 1.3 is local, 6.5 goes back to the state. With voter approval, simple majority, you can increase that by 0.2% up to 8% or a number lower. That vote is limited to 10 years, but there's the ability to go back to the voters for an additional 10 years of a ballot item. So that's something that the Transportation Benefit District could enact to raise dollars to do the projects that they have in there. So that's the second form, and we'll see in a couple slides who's using which. There's some other funding sources that are a little less prominent as the others. I included a couple that don't relate to us because I just wanted to be thorough. So general obligation bonds, as a district, you can put the GO bonds out. And so far only one municipality has tried that, and it did not pass in Auburn, but it is a possibility. Border area fuel tax, only places that abut the Canadian border, so being close to Idaho doesn't help us with this. There is the ability to level impact fees, but whatever impact fees are levied for a Transportation Benefit District are credited back towards other impact fees that the city could impose. So it's not an as addition, it's in place of. Tolls, fine on city-owned roads, got to get state approval for the state roads, and that's Grand, Main, Paradise, the real busy roads. So that's also a possibility. Excess property tax levies authorized by the voters for 1 year only at a time. And then there's a chance to do local improvement districts. That's a whole nother, I don't know if this council's been discussing LIDs in the past. That's a whole nother presentation in and of itself, but basically it's a sub-district where the dollars are identified towards being used for it. Okay. One of the things that transportation benefit districts are required to adopt is material change policy, and what that really boils down to is that last bullet point is if you're doing projects, very specific projects, and that project changes in estimate by more than 20%, there has to be a policy on board as to what to do about that. Does the scope change? Does the schedule change? And how that is handled. And as we see rising prices, this is something that's in the RCW that we would need to address as a in writing and be watched carefully. So if things start to slide away, there's a way to keep the community and the project intact. Budgeting, the state law doesn't really go into specifics about appropriations budget. Staff kind of looked at this from, I think we would recommend to council treating it a lot like the Metro Parks District, where we can incorporate projects through our regular budget process, and this is a pass-through entity that collects the dollars and has the city of Pullman does the work, because as I think I'm going to preview the next slide, yes I am. So as the city of Pullman and the Transportation Benefit District were to work hand in hand, the Transportation Benefit District would need to produce materials for a state audit. So having less in here and all the stuff being delivered on the other end, and because the board is the same as the city council, there's that ability to create some efficiencies and save some dollars on the state audit by doing it that way. Okay. Annual reporting, I just touched on quite a bit of this, similar to the Metro Parks. There is one additional piece on Transportation Benefit District. Towards the end there, a separate annual transportation improvement report detailing revenues, expenditures, and project status and construction schedules does need to be produced to the public and towards the newspapers of record. So this will be an additional housekeeping piece that based on the reports that I've seen other transportation benefit districts do, this could be handled in-house. And if the district needs to dissolve, there are rules about that, just like there was with the TPA. So if a transportation benefit district, say, is created to do a one-time project, the first bullet within 30 days of completion of the improvement and how that would do. If this is set up more like the pavement that we've been discussing offline individually, that's an ongoing project based on our pavement study. So dissolving it because the project is complete, I can see this transportation benefit district really going on a lot more term than just a single item. And then there's a process for refunding taxes and making sure staff is separated properly. And any debt service, there's rules on that, making sure that that goes through according to RCW as well. So there's a way in, there's a way out, and it's all very defined. Okay, so quick little picture you can see around the state where a bunch of these transportation benefit districts already exist. You can see the closest one to us is Clarkston and Walla Walla and down through that area and a few up north. The next slide, we'll get right into that. So we would be one of many to do this. There's 111 transportation benefit districts in the state of Washington. 7 have been formed but remain unfunded. 5 of those 104 that have been funded have both license fees and a voter-approved sales tax. Seattle, Linwood, Tacoma, Enumclaw, and George. I checked that twice, so, because it threw me for a little bit. And what you tend to see on the ones that have the license fees and the sales tax tends not to be the full 2%. So 4 of the ones there are not the full 2. There's a few at 0.1. I think there was a couple at 0.15 and one at 0.18. So when I was looking at what this could mean revenue-wise, I started with the license fees, adding it the $20 for autos, and had Haley Clementson make a few calls around locally to the licensing offices, to the state. It was a really hard number to get our arms around without doing a very large public records request. And before I went any further and spending a lot more city dollars, I kind of wanted to just get this much in front of you. You know, I struggled with this. 35,000 people in Pullman. Does everybody drive a car? No. Do some families have 2 cars? Fine. So what's the real number? I came up with, if I had to make a guess, I would say 8,000. They're registered in Pullman and get their tabs here. So 8,000 times $20, $160,000. So I can dig into it deeper if this is something that we're interested in doing more, and I can talk to the state about getting a download, do it by zip code, but then eliminating the ones that live outside the city limits because we have no jurisdiction outside of there. So the sales tax method, on the other hand, was very easy to compute. I just went back a couple of years and said if all things were equal and we were collecting 8% instead of 7.8%, how much of that full amount, 0.2, could we dedicate towards transportation projects? And as you can see, the lowest number was 2017, but last year 820,000, and this year we're going to be getting another sales tax download this week. So we're already up to 380,000 of what that could have been collected if the community votes to approve an additional 0.2% for a transportation benefit district to benefit streets or whatever the board wants to put as their pilot projects and ranking those. There's no shortage of road projects and transportation projects, as you saw by the CIP, that's coming up in a few agenda items. So that's why I bring you to this slide last, because I remember watching a lot of council members' faces when this came up, and if we keep doing what we're doing, hopefully, yeah. This is the number that the consultant was pointing out. If we keep doing what we're doing here, over here, I see everybody turning the wrong way, but I can't get oh, darn it, it's that -2 number. So he had pointed out to us that if we keep going the way we're going, we're going to lose ground, continue to lose ground, and slowly. Sales tax, if that's something the community believes in and the board would be interested in putting in front of them, just another $750,000, 772, because then that makes it a nice round number on top of the 929. That changes us. That puts us well between the +13 and +24. That's the progress line that was being discussed earlier. So here's an opportunity for doing some pavement work. It was already assigned to us as a project to bring back for discussion. It just seemed to be relevant and timely. And something for more discussion. So I'm happy to answer the questions and love to get some direction on what you'd like to see happen next. But thank you, Council.
Okay, Brandon?
Mike, thank you. You know that I've been asking for TBD presentations for a long time. Granted, originally it was more of a South Bypass request, but I think we all saw after Sean's presentation and Kara's presentation about roads that it's definitely needed. Now, I have talked to a few folks, one of whom, a resident here in Pullman, is very anti-tax. He frequently comments on social media, and he watches our council meetings, and he's probably watching tonight. And I approached him about being able to see an actual result from something like a 0.2% sales tax, and he was okay with that because he and I think a lot of residents really want to see these roads improve from the 41 up to whatever we could do. And if you look at other cities in the state of Washington, the Tri-Cities are all at 8.6, Prosser's at 8.6, Ellensburg's at 8.3, Clarkston's at 8.3. So at 7.8, I mean, bumping to 8.0 is not that much if residents can see that there is value there. And so I know it's something I've wanted for a while. At least this presentation shows what we could get with that money, and I think I would definitely support that.
And yeah, thank you. And the South Bypass, it would be another project that could be identified by the board as a possible solution. Okay.
Yeah, I think when I read through this before, I kind of missed that because I was thinking pavement after Sean's excellent presentation. But where it says improved freight mobility, doesn't that sort of mean South Bypass and or some other type of thing to move truck traffic in a different way than what we are doing it now?
Or improving the way we're doing it now on Main Street as well.
Yeah, and improved air quality, and could we maybe sneak in there quality? A lot of people complain about the noise, that trucks are noisy. So different kinds of planters or barriers or berms or any of that. This money could be used for that as well.
Yes, the criteria is nice and broad, and the projects just need to walk, talk, and act like a transportation project.
Great, thank you.
Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, great presentation. I was looking for more data on cars because here's the situation with us, with our sales tax already as it is, being on the border of Idaho. Businesses are struggling even, I mean, of course, after COVID, but normally this is something that they find pretty challenging with the difference in sales tax. I would like to see if there's a deeper dive we can do on how many cars are in our area, because that is something that I think it's an easy sell. We're using the pavement in that way. It's a good way to approach. I understand, and the numbers don't lie, and I appreciate what Brandon has said regarding the sales tax. I do feel right now with the crunch, I'd at least like to see the numbers. I'm not saying I'm not for it, but I'd like to see the numbers as far as the amount of cars.
Sure. Absolutely, and the way I understand too, it's not just cars, it's trailers, motorhomes, and those types of things. So yeah, I'll put the admin specialist on putting that together and see if we can zero in to a close number, at least a range.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dan?
Thanks for this presentation, Mike. Ever since we got that presentation from Sean on the pavement, it's been something I've been thinking a lot about, and it's also got me thinking more about the bypass project. And the city's been talking about the bypass project for years, and I've been thinking about what are the different ways we could set up so we're kind of setting aside money year after year towards that project, because the way that it's gone so far, it's going to take a long time to get us to completion of that project. And this is the type of thing that could set us on a path towards setting up that funding path. But I think the immediate need is definitely on the improvement of the quality of our roads that we currently have. So there's that. But in terms of, the different options for funding TBD, I actually think the sales tax is probably the better way to go for our community. I think, there's probably a lot more than 8,000 cars or vehicles that are registered in Pullman. But even what you were talking about there with, if you take 8,000, how much is that? That doesn't really compare to the amount of revenue we would raise with the sales tax. And I am more comfortable with putting out a vote to the people to approve a tax increase than going with some of the vehicle license fees that we might be able to do without putting it out for a vote. I mean, I think we still could put it out for a vote, but I'd be more comfortable with letting the residents decide through the voting process if we're looking at a tax increase like that. But also just looking at the amount of money we would raise from one over the other, the sales tax seems to be much more in line with the type of funding or level of funding we would need for the pavement improvement projects. And I don't really think that our community would be in support of having both the sales tax and the license fees. I think there would be a lot of resistance to that. So I think it's probably the best way to approach it is on the sales tax. But I don't think there's any harm in doing a little bit more effort on figuring out what is the actual numbers on the vehicle licensing.
Agree. The advantage of the sales tax is it does capture any of the out-of-town folks coming in that are using the roads as opposed to just the locals. And I know all sales tax propositions are inherently, there's more than two sides, at least two sides, sometimes more, depending on what the dollars are going to be used for. And I've had experience on trying to propose those types of things. And yeah, when you just look at the dollar amount, and when I say 8,000 vehicles, you got to remember I'm programmed as an accountant, so I'm physically responsible trying to come up with a reasonable number. If it came in at 10,000, it wouldn't surprise me to the least either.
Okay. Brandon?
Al, okay. All right. Yeah, and I don't know if this needs to be said, but I'll say it and wrap a bow around my thoughts, and then I'll turn it over to anyone else. But I mean, we had a presentation tonight about the marketing of Pullman, and we've heard so much about first impressions of Pullman. I know when we talk about roads and the residents I talk to, most of it is a quality of life. If you if you're hitting potholes, that sure, I mean that can be a frustration. It could be a danger if you're actually a cyclist or things of that nature. But we can't lose sight of the marketing perspective and the first impressions as we invite people to come into our city. This is a curb appeal issue for our city. When they come in, they want to see that we're willing to, I guess, spend the money necessary to take care of our roads. And I thought the presentation from Sean and Kara was fantastic because it's not just lipstick on a pig. I mean, we're talking about designing and engineering these roads right the first time, but then maintaining. And I really do believe that there's so much value in these roads beyond just the quality of life. But obviously we can't overlook that. But holistically, I mean, the streets are pretty important.
Al?
Boring streets, is that what you said? The streets are boring?
Important.
Oh. Okay, so, yeah, once we saw this report on the status of the streets in Pullman, which we already all knew, but we didn't know it was that bad, I don't think. Everyone sitting up here, I think, was in agreement that we need to do something. I'll just give my opinion on some of these funding things. I don't have a problem with the car or the vehicle tab tax. It's an excise tax. It's a use tax. So the people using the roads, causing the problems, wearing them out, are the ones that I personally feel should maybe participate. The sales tax increase, I understand what you're saying, Nathan, going from 7.8 to 8% could cause some more leakage to Moscow, but 0.2% is not very much in my eyes in regards to change. That would not make me decide I'm going to shop in Moscow completely. Therefore, then we could do that possibly with things, and then we kind of get both, like some of those other cities were doing. Did you say there were 5 of them or something like that that kind of had the combination?
Yes.
We start out with $20 on the excise tax. Well, it's not an excise tax, licensing tax, and then after 2 years we can bump it up to $40. That starts getting some real money, and we need to spend, you know, a little more than $1 million a year for 10 years to get this done. And I'm completely in support of all that, and I'd love to float it to the people.
Okay. Eileen?
Yeah, I'm looking at this map, and I love maps. Thanks for providing that. But I'm looking at other communities here that are on the border either with Oregon or Idaho or with Canada. And if they, you know, if this is working for them, maybe we should be, you know, kind of letting the scales drop from our eyes as well and saying, well, why is it working for Walla Walla? And as I look around the map, I'm seeing that a lot of these communities are highly dependent upon visitor traffic. Aberdeen, Washougal, Walla Walla, I mean, they have a huge, especially this time of year, they have a huge visitor population, and that's where they're generating that revenue, is from that little bump in their sales tax. So I think these communities have kind of shown us the way, and I guess I'm going to follow up that with what's next. How do we move towards this if council chooses to suggest that we promote the sales tax?
Sure. I think my first thing I'm going to do is since you like maps and I like spreadsheets, I'm going to send the full spreadsheet to council that I downloaded from the state. I tried to put it in here, impossible to read. That way you can peruse it and see all the cities, not just the red dots. If council would, I have some additional research as requested, so I'll provide that. As soon as we can get some cooperation from the State Department of Licensing, I'll put that out in the form of a memo. And then I guess if council would like to continue to proceed down this way, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to establish a transportation benefit district probably would be the next step before, you know, we even talk about funding. Because as you saw, there were 7 communities that were established but unfunded. So that's not uncommon.
All right. Ann?
Thank you for the presentation and the information. It's really helpful. I have a kind of a technical question. If, just for example, if we do levy the sales tax, how long do we have to collect it before we can start using it? Is there a threshold we have to meet, or if we get $100, we can turn around and spend it type thing?
Depends on the project. So as the projects get established by the Transportation Benefit District Board, say for instance, the first project is $2 million, we would need to collect that $2 million before we can institute it. But if there are other projects, say the pavement, for instance, where a few streets can be identified each year on top of what we're already doing, as long as we're collecting enough to do those budgeted items, it can be spent right away. The hard cap's on the back end, it's the 10 years. So once, if the sales tax is what the voters approve, that is hard capped at 10 years before we would have to go back and ask for another 10 year.
What is capped at 10 years? The project?
Collection of the 0.2% additional sales tax.
Oh, understood. Thank you. Okay.
That's not in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature, and the council's had a chance to look at these ahead of time. Do I hear a motion to read the consent agenda by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, Laura McAloon, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Your consent agenda consists of a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 14, 2021, and approve them as submitted. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 104246 through 104255, electronic transfers 2728 and 758 through 762, payroll direct deposits numbered 70801 through 71118, totaling $846,273.08. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 104389 through 104406, electronic transfers 2930, 757, and 763 through 768, payroll direct deposits numbered 71119 through 71443, totaling $1,370,104.53. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 104326 through 104388, totaling $199,785.97. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 104408 through 104499, totaling $185,523.59. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable electronic funds transfer numbered 8252021, totaling $51,822.33. A motion to approve voiding checks 103235, 104143, 97542, and 104256, and the disbursement of subsequent replacement checks numbered 103991, 104198, 104199, and 104407, totaling $292.55. A motion to authorize the execution of a lease agreement with Whitman County for city-owned property at 325 Southeast Paradise Street, Old City Hall Building. Acknowledgement of 2019 and 2020 Police Department Annual Reports Addendums, and Resolution number R-49-21, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to a purchase and sale agreement with Justin Rogers for the sale of certain real property of the city.
Any item the council would like out for discussion?
7.
Pardon?
7.
7. Any others? The consent agenda consists of items 1 through 6 and 8 through 10. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And now we go to item number 7.
I know this is a very low amount, but I'm just very curious to know why we're replacing checks. Did they not get cash the first time around, or?
Yes, these are checks that were distributed and were not cashed, marked as lost and properly replaced.
So did the recipients of these checks ask for these to be replaced, or are we just replacing them because they were never cashed?
I think most of the recipients, I would want to confirm this with the finance director, but my recollection is we contacted most of the recipients and they could not or were unaware that the check was coming, and we replaced them based on that information.
Okay, thank you.
Then would I entertain a motion to approve that number
Move
7?
to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll verify that and get an email out to you.
We now move to the regular agenda. First of all is an ordinance approving a proposal to amend the zone classification. And with that, we have our assistant planner, Ariel Medeiros. Ariel?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The ordinance before you is a proposed zone change from a current C3 General Commercial District to an R4 High-Density Multifamily Residential District for a parcel totaling 3.9 acres. C3 General Commercial Districts provide for general commercial uses that are typically dependent upon convenient vehicular access. An R4 High-Density Multifamily Residential District provides for single-family houses, manufactured homes, duplexes, and apartment complexes with a maximum of 44 dwelling units per net acre. There's supposed to be a map, but it's also in the staff report on page 7 as attachment A. The subject property is located southeast of the intersection of Southeast Clearwater Drive and Southeast Bypass Drive at 1043 and 1051 Southeast Bypass Drive. The proposed zone change is located immediately west of the Community Action Center Riverview Apartments, which is currently zoned as a R3 medium-density multifamily residential. All the parcels in the proposed zone change are undeveloped and are under one ownership, which is KIP Development, who is a co-applicant on the zone change. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the item on August 25th of 2021. There was no comments in opposition, either written or oral. They voted unanimously in favor of a recommendation for approval. The next item on this agenda is a simultaneous change of the comprehensive plan land use map from commercial to high-density residential, which would need to accompany the zone change as well. Is there any questions?
Dan?
Thanks. My question is really more about the general area as we develop along Bypass Drive. What are the requirements for setbacks from Bypass Drive as we go forward with these types of projects?
So for an R4 zone, the normal setbacks for the side are 5 feet, and the rear is a 10-foot setback, and the front is dependent on whatever is going to be proposed to be built. Normally it's a 15-foot setback, but if it is some kind of development, if the front entrance and there's no parking on the front, it can be as little as 5 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor?
I just saw that we should have asked the appearance of fairness questions. I was going through the material and did not have that as an advance, so before we take any action, let me go through this and read the appearance of fairness questions. And Brandon, we'll start with you on this one. Does any member of the council have knowledge or having conducted business with either proponents or opponents of this proceeding?
No.
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 Has any member of the council communicated with any proponent or opponent regarding the proposal that is subject to this proceeding?
No.
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 No?
No.
I have to go back to the first question. I'm sorry.
Does any member of the council have any knowledge of having conducted business with either the proponent or opponent of this proceeding?
Yes, I have to change my answer.
And do you want to state the business? You're talking with Kevin Kirkman? Or?
I do some business with KIP Development.
Okay. Laura, is that sufficient?
And now the second question again.
And the second question is, any member of the council communicated with any proponent or opponent regarding the proposal that is subject to this proceeding?
No.
Okay. Number three, does any member of this council have either a financial or personal interest in the outcome of this proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of the council know whether or not their employer has a financial interest in this matter or has an interest in the outcome of this proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of this council live or own property within 300 feet of the area which is subject to the proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of the council have any special knowledge about the substance or merits of this proceeding which would or could cause a council member to prejudge the outcome of this proceeding?
No.
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 Is there any member of this council who believes that he or she cannot sit and hear the matter fairly and impartially, both as to the respective positions of the proponents and the opponents of this proceeding?
No.
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 Is there any member of the audience who, because of the appearance of fairness doctrine, wishes to disqualify any member of the council from hearing this matter? And if so, please state the name of the council member and the reason or reasons why you believe the member should be disqualified because of the appearance of fairness question. And seeing none, we'll continue on then. Again, we're still dealing with the ordinance, first of all, and the proposal. And Ario has the subject property up there on the screen. Yeah. Al.
Okay, so question here. So I've made some comments in the past about building the roads to make sure that they are the size and sufficient to carry vehicles if it was to be a bypass built there. the road is already there now, correct?
Yes.
He would be required, though, to not build anywhere or get close to where that line, because that street was not built correct width for the bypass at this section. So there shouldn't be anything that could be done out there that then we would have to take apart as a city at our expense. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's not very clear, sorry.
A little bit, not completely.
Okay.
Al, are you talking about the right-of-way and where the boundary is and how close they could get to that?
Not necessarily the right-of-way, but the actual street itself in that section is not built to the width that the bypass road will be. We have to widen it already. And so I guess, yeah, it would be making sure that anything they do on the property is completely out of the bypass. Yeah, I guess you're right, Dan. And we would make sure that would happen, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Eileen.
Would that include, following up on Al's point and Dan's point, then any improvements, driveways, or whatever, would that necessarily take into account also the potential bypass use for that? So the curbs and the driveways and the roadways, potential delivery trucks have have enough road bed and drainage and all the other things that go along with the major bypass road.
I can talk with our Public Works Department, but I'm not sure about that.
Sure. Because
Our Public Works Director, Sean Coates.
Yeah, in this case, upon the development application, we'd receive a site plan application, and we would require, as an impact of that development, to widen the road to the correct standard. So essentially, we would be asking the developer to offset the impact of their development and build the road to the section that we require.
Thank you.
Al?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Sorry, that was so confusing earlier. Okay.
Any other questions on this? Or do I hear a motion on this ordinance?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Laura, would you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 21-11, an ordinance amending the zone classification from C3 to R4 for the real estate herein described, consisting of 3.9 acres located at 1043 and 1051 Southeast Bypass Drive.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Move to item number 2, the resolution amending the official comprehensive plan, which Ariel has covered. Any additional questions on this resolution? Seeing none, do I hear a motion on this resolution?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Laura, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution number R-50-21, a resolution amending the official comprehensive plan map of the city of Pullman from commercial to high-density residential for the real estate herein described, consisting of 3.9 acres located at 1043 and 1051 Southeast Bypass Drive.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, R.J. Lott with the resolution approving the comprehensive plan dated September 2021.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening once again, Council. This item before you is the resolution to adopt the City of Pullman Comprehensive Plan. The draft 2021 City of Pullman Comprehensive Plan is attached for your review. It's also available on the city's website. As you know, the current comprehensive plan was last updated in 1999 and is overdue for an update. We do have documentation dating back to 2014 in terms of completing this update, so it's been a very long process so far. So the draft comprehensive plan was completed in June of 2020. Subsequently, the City of Pullman Planning Commission held special meetings to take public input and provide recommended edits to the final plan. A schedule was produced where the Planning Commission held special meetings in the months of April through August of 2021. On August 11th, 2021, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the draft comprehensive plan. A unanimous vote of recommendation to adopt was made and has been forwarded to the City Council. A SEPA checklist on this item has been prepared, and a determination of non-significance was made back on July 14th, 2020. Just 2 weeks ago, a public hearing was held by the City Council on September 14th, 2021, with a short presentation by Lisa Gruder of Burke Consulting. Only one member of the public spoke in favor of the draft comprehensive plan. At this time, staff recommends that the City Council approve a resolution adopting the 2021 City of Pullman Comprehensive Plan as presented. Are there any questions?
Comments or questions? Brandon?
I have no questions, but I know this has been a very long process, and I appreciate your expertise in coming in here and making this a priority. And I know others, department heads and Laura and others have really helped in this process, so really, really appreciate that.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, this has been the top priority of planning staff for 2021. And as I mentioned earlier, this has been in the works for a very long time. And the amount of hours put in by the Planning Commission as well as members of the public and other stakeholders has been enormous getting to this point. So I, as well as the rest of those who have participated in the process, certainly appreciate that. So thank you.
I will entertain a motion then.
I would move to adopt Resolution R5121.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Laura?
Resolution number R-51-21, a resolution approving the comprehensive plan dated September 2021 as the official comprehensive plan for the City of Pullman.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. RJ is back for another resolution approving the 6-year capital improvement program.
Yes, thank you. So this is the annual capital improvement program document. So this is for the years of 2022 through 2027. Attached to this item is a memo in your packet dated back June 18th, 2021 by myself as well as City Administrator Mike Urban. On August 9th, 2021, the CIP committee met to consider various funding requests and to prepare a draft CIP for the years that I mentioned, 2022 through 2027. The CIP committee did recommend moving 5 projects up in their respective timelines. Let me hit on those briefly. One was electric fans for the fire department. Second is auto pulse to be moved up in a timeline if American Rescue Plan funds can be applied. The third is Fire Station 3 moving $100,000 from 2023 to 2022. The fourth is Stormwater Management Plan to secure a consultant to begin work in 2021. And the final one is to begin a police station study in 2021. On August 25th, 2021, the Pullman Planning Commission held a meeting to review both the CIP and the item next on your agenda, the Transportation Improvement Plan for 2022 through 2027. After discussing the draft CIP, the Commission voted unanimously to find the draft CIP consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission is charged with a review and to make recommendations to the City Council on the proposed CIP as it relates to land use or the comprehensive plan. On September 14th, just 2 weeks ago, the City Council held a public hearing on the CIP. There was no oral written testimony received. Staff recommends a motion to adopt the 6-year capital improvement plan for 2022 through 2027. Now, the recommendations that I mentioned, the 5 project moving forward, is not included in the resolution or in the project as it sits now. However, if the City Council would like those recommendations from the CIP committee included, we can amend that program by motion. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments on this? And again, they'd have to take a separate action. You have the resolution, and then you also have to take the amendment. Is that what you're recommending, Laura?
The amendment goes first.
Actually, you would need another resolution to amend the resolution. So, but we could certainly bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay. Just want to make sure we have that right. So you're dealing with what you have in that resolution right now, okay? Do I hear a motion on this?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Move and second. Laura, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution number R-52-21, a resolution approving a 6-year capital improvement program for the city of Pullman for calendar years 2022 through 2027.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is it the council's interest to have the city staff come back with a resolution to move the other items?
Yes.
I'm seeing yes. So that'll be on the next council agenda. Okay. Item number 5 is a resolution. Once again, RJ's back by popular demand. This time, dealing with the transportation improvement plan.
Yes, thank you. So this is an item, this is also an annual budgetary document. This is for the years also 2022 through 2027. This is the 6-year transportation improvement program. So attached to your, or included in your packet is the projects included in the proposed TIP. Upon council approval, the TIP will be properly formatted and submitted to the Washington State Department of Transportation as appropriate. The Planning Commission considered the TIP at their meeting on August 25th, 2021 and found it consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The arterial streets and transit projects included in the TIP are also included in the city's capital improvement program. In other words, the TIP is a subset of the previous CIP. The City Council held a public hearing on this item 2 weeks ago on September 14th, 2021. There was no written or oral testimony received. At this time, staff recommends a motion that the City Council adopt the 6-year transportation improvement program for 2022 through 2027 as presented. Are there any questions on this item?
Okay. Nathan.
Less of a question, more of a comment. I just have to say, you were thrown into the deep end here, and you have just performed admirably. And I'm just going to echo what Brandon said. This comp plan, even though we, just passed it kind of silently, like this is great, this is huge and almost requires fireworks. What do you say, Brandon? You really have performed very professionally, admirably. I've heard nothing but great things from community members, organizations. So thank you so much for the way you conduct yourself.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's not all of my work, so I can't take all of the credit. It's really a collaborative effort with staff and stakeholders and with our consultant who did a wonderful job with the comprehensive plan. So I would love to take all the credit, but I won't.
And so humble.
And the Planning Commission did
Yes, absolutely. They have actually put in, if I could
yes,
take
please do.
a moment with
Because
those
these are all
folks.
volunteers. I want to make sure that all these people that work on that Planning Commission.
Yes, so they really pulled double duty, so to speak, over the course of the summer. So we generally have one scheduled meeting a month. So through the summer months, essentially April through August, we held 2 meetings. And some of those meetings went quite late, and I certainly appreciate their efforts in those long and lengthy meetings.
Yeah. Brandon?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm not sure how the fire marshal would feel about lighting off fireworks in here.
Definitely not.
Probably not. I know for residents, they're going to hear, this, it's going to come and go in the list, but there are items in this list that I think are worth just mentioning because we've talked about them, and I think folks don't really know where they're at, and they are listed in here, the roundabout on Terraview. The traffic signal at Grandin Center is one that a lot of people talk about, and some of those Main Street downtown enhancements. These are things that really do, I guess, affect the way people feel about Pullman and the progress that we're making. And so I just wanted to say that those are on this list for folks that may not pull that up and see this, that they are moving forward in some form or fashion.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Move in second. Laura?
Resolution number R-53-21, a resolution approving a 6-year transportation improvement program for the city of Pullman for calendar years 2022 through 2027.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We now move to another resolution adopting a fee schedule for fire permits in accordance with Pullman City Code. And we have both Chris Waring, our fire marshal, and the newly christened Chief Training Officer, Ray Lamoureux, who just got his certification for that. Congratulations, Ray, for the designation, because I know that's been a lot of study on that, for being a Chief Training Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. As you know, I took over the oversight of the Prevention Division mid-June with my reclassification, and met with the prevention staff soon thereafter and asked Fire Marshal Waring what was one of his main administrative projects that he wasn't able to get to, and one of them was this permit fee schedule, both for our construction permits and our operational permits. The big glaring problem with our current fee schedule is that we are unable to collect for any site planning or building plan review. The only fees that we can charge are for systems, so sprinkler systems, fire detection systems, hood systems, those types of things. So we're missing out on really covering a lot of the staff time that goes into our building plan review and our site visits when Chris and or Tony have to go out and work through these site inspections with contractors. So just a couple of examples. Starbucks up on up on Stadium. Because of the size of the building and the use of the occupancy, there was no sprinkler system in there. No real detection system, off Bishop, sorry. So there was no fees attached to that staff work that happened for that project. Chris had to go out multiple times for site visits, inspections, approval for making sure that water mains for the fire hydrants, those types of things were in place before the contractor buried them. And we were unable to recover any kind of staff time there. The other one, more of a in-depth project, would be Evolve. So when Evolve happened, obviously there's plenty of systems in there, sprinkler systems, fire detection systems. So we were able to recoup some of the review costs there. Roughly permit fees for that project was about $5,500 on a $15 million project overall. Chris, again, had to go in depth and review the building plans, the site plan, multiple site visits that we weren't able to recoup staff time on. Under the new fee schedule, we would have been able to recoup another $6,200 in permit fees for that project. Sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of a $15 million project, we're talking about 0.4%. I just don't really see a contractor with that substantial of a project really batting an eye at that. We've also looked at how we calculate these fees. So right now we calculate them based off of an engineer's estimate, which isn't always accurate. So we did some research both on the internet and looking around our state to see how different agencies are calculating their permit fees, and we settled on a per device or per initiating device if we're talking about a fire detection system, or per sprinkler head if we're talking about a sprinkler system. We've given that a range and assigned a dollar value to that to inspect or review those plans. Now, when we get into the inspection side, especially when we're talking about fire detection systems, take global animal health, for example, you got to post folks on each floor, because when that system goes off, certain things have to be witnessed in the testing phase of these systems. And so bringing in extra staff to do that, again, these are staff dollars that we're unable to recoup. The other thing that we built in here that is a little bit more robust than our current fee schedule is excess trips out to the construction site. Deputy Fire Marshal Nutman, when he was working on the retreat, probably made at least 200 trips out to the job site. And these weren't just, hey, we got something to show you, can you come look at this? These were trips that were scheduled inspections. They get out there, oh, we're not ready, can you come back later? So he had to come back out another time. So we're trying to encourage our contractors to be a little bit more studious with our time. And so we've built some measures into the fee schedule to assist them in helping us. We also, and that goes back to opportunity costs. You know, if we're constantly going out to these construction sites and we're not encouraging our contractors to be a little bit more studious when they're calling us out, that's taking time away from our staff that they could be doing other things such as building inspections and other plan reviews. The other thing that this addresses is our operational permit fees. So these are fees that are spelled out in the International Fire Code. And really what we looked at was since 2015 when this was adopted last, what's the market done? And so what we found was we've seen about a 21.4% increase in CPI since 2015, and looking at a 4-year window of when, or 5-year window when we would address this again, what's the forecast going to be out 4 or 5 years? And right now that's about 10.4%. So we're asking for a 35% increase in the operational fees, but when we hit that next benchmark, when we're going to look at this again, we're going to be roughly 31.8% increase in cost of doing business. So we think we're in the ballpark with those operational fees without putting us in the rears like we are now, where we're really undercharging for what services our folks are doing. So if council agrees to adopt this as we've submitted, staff recommends a effective date of November 1. So this gives the whole month of October for any folks that are ready to submit to get that in before the new fees would take effect. Within the resolution, it states that the fire chief needs to approve these as well. Chief Heston has looked at this fee schedule and has given us his blessing to move forward with this. So with that, Chris or I would entertain any questions that you might have.
Questions? Eileen?
More of just a comment, Ray and Chris. We know that you guys do an absolutely fabulous job of emergency response, and we have a very professional crew and people sometimes, our citizens often forget that there is a huge business and administrative side to a modern fire department. It's really the invisible side of that fire department, and I think these fees are appropriate, and I think they're necessary, and I appreciate you bringing it to us this way so we can kind of help out on that side of things. But like I say, I'm always amazed at when I hear about the amount of reports and inspections and stuff that the fire department really does. I don't know how it would come together any other way. But yeah, it's that truly hidden side, and it needs to be funded.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's also been great to have Chris and Tony in this building for the one-stop shopping that we've been trying to get for a long time, and it's worked out very well. So it's good to see Chris and Tony each day down there. So, Brandon?
Yeah, and not only what Eileen pointed out, but I appreciate, and this is a good example of where the council had expressed a desire to have some of these fees not absorbed by the city, and things like this really help me feel good. Like I appreciate you listening and coming up with some solutions that at least meet that desire, and this is a good example of that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No other comments? Do I hear a motion on this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Laura?
Resolution number R-54-21, a resolution adopting a fee schedule for fire permits in accordance with Pullman City Code, Chapter 3.16, International Fire Code, rescinding Resolution R-68-15, and other matters properly related thereto.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you,
Thank
Council.
you again. Item number 7 tonight is a motion to adopt the Pullman City Council goals and priorities for 2021. Mike Urban.
Thank you. Good evening again. So before you tonight are the City of Pullman goals and priorities as that have been discussed by all of you over the last several weeks and months. It's been put into a final form, and over the course of the meetings, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of items that were created, and I didn't want to lose track of some of those things because they were all very impassioned and very important to many of you. So as part of my agenda item, I did make a commitment to come back on things that, even though they're not officially adopted, I have a feeling they'll be coming back again to be officially adopted unless I can get them done ahead of time. So that's kind of the game I'm playing with myself and the staff, make sure we get the adopted goals and priorities done, as well as some of these other things because of the conversations I was involved in. So I appreciate the City Council and the Mayor's guidance through this. This is our work plan as a organization, what I'll be working with executive management team on, as well as myself, and I look forward to delivering all of these goals and priorities for you and request that you adopt them as presented.
Any comments on this? Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, I had a question regarding, we've had this discussion, and I had brought it up at one of the council meetings regarding working with the League of Women Voters and WSU on trying to increase our registration of student population or younger voters to truly be representative of what Pullman is. I know I had discussed this, and maybe this is something that's more of a project to take on than necessarily a goal or something along those lines, but I think it's really important for us to try and work together with these other entities that are registering voters, see if we can work together on that. So I know we talked about this.
Yeah, and I mentioned that in my last bullet point on the voter registration. I think we missed an opportunity earlier this week. I believe it was National Voter Registration Day, and it just wasn't simply on my radar. So I put it on the radar as a tickler for next year, and maybe we can do some sort of event here where we can get people registered at City Hall, although it is so easy to register online nowadays. It seems to be the way that people are doing it more prominently. Dee's nodding her head too. But yep, that was one of those items I didn't want to lose.
Great, thank you.
Al, next.
I want to jump on there, Nathan. The League of Women Voters was in the Cub registering students today.
Yep, yeah.
Eileen, did you have a comment?
Again, on that last bullet point, just a kind of an editorial, working the words around a little bit, where it says promoting trade education. I'm not sure that that's at all clear. I mean, trade education could be a lot of things, but I think what we were specifically referring to was educating people in working in vocational trades. Was that?
I believe from taking a bunch of different items and trying to loop it into a short deal, I believe that I understand the direction on that. And if I didn't use the right words on there, it was not intentional.
Going back to Al.
I wanted to jump back on the downtown revitalization part of this, and I want the public to hear it again. It's this council's plan and made that our #1 goal to make sure that these things move forward with the city taking the lead. And all of the things, those 4 bullet points listed here, if you haven't seen them, are extremely important to this city council and the city as a whole and everyone around. And I will continue to do everything. I think the city council will continue to do everything we can to move things forward with that downtown revitalization project. So I just want the public to know we are serious about making this happen.
Okay. Any other comments? Matter of fact, Jen and I put that in a letter today to one of the businesses downtown, or at least one of the empty buildings, the owner, and talked about how the council plan is number one and what we're doing to revitalize and all the other kinds of things. And we sent that off in the mail today. If there's no other comments, do I hear a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Go to new business, and I know, Mike, you have a couple of items.
Sure, I got two quick items, and Al kind of set me up for the first item. You'll notice tonight that there was not the RFP for the downtown consultant to help us through the downtown revitalization project. So a quick update on why that is. We received 4 very strong proposals, and it took us a little extra time to evaluate. So by the time the evaluation was finished, the council agenda already had to be posted. We're ready to come back at the next scheduled meeting with that, with a recommendation, and we appreciate Councilmember Wright and Sorensen helping us through that. I believe you're going to get a unanimous recommendation from the fellow council members as well as the city staff, that they were very, very strong. We wanted to make sure we took the right amount of time and not try to cram it on there. So that is coming. And as part of that downtown first council agenda item, keeping in focus not just the sidewalks and the streets, but I really want to touch on High Street Plaza, because that's adjacent to that, and there are some ARP dollars available for that. But I was finally given permission the other day to discuss this, but we did do a cleanup down there with some volunteers and some additional hardscape items were put in on a temporary basis on loan. So we want to thank Councilmember Sorensen, his wife Mia Peterson, for the use of those and the hard work of their group to get that all cleaned up so we can see into High Street and start envisioning that as well. So that's why the RFP wasn't here, but it is coming. We're very, very pleased and excited to be able to bring you that recommendation. The other item I had is I've been waiting this out a little bit because the carpet had pulled out from under my feet a couple times on utility shutoffs. It looks like the governor's order on the moratorium for utility shutoffs will actually expire at the end of this month, which is this week. This city council was way ahead of the state as far as granting, stopping the shutoffs, stopping late fees and interest payments on our utility customers. But now that it looks like it's coming to an end, I would like to bring back for council discussion as to what you would like to do about that at the next council meeting, or would you prefer that the city staff just follows along with the governor orders? So I'm looking for a little guidance if we can wait until the 12th so you can fully discuss it, or if I should just keep with the state orders on that.
Okay, Nathan?
I'd like to not follow the governor on this and see what we can do. So.
Okay.
So you're essentially encouraging to continue on with the moratorium?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So
Al, did you have a comment?
No, I just couldn't hear what you said, so.
Continue on with the moratorium for right now. I think that it's important. This is a subject that's been discussed at, I know, the Poverty Awareness Task Force regarding moratoriums, and the concern that there will be additional people in trouble, in need, as COVID continues. So, yeah.
So what I'm looking at right now, and you've been receiving my monthly aging reports, you'll be receiving another one early next week. I see Spokane talking about continuing it on for several months, but I also see Moscow has gone back to doing shutoffs and late fees. So I have some time to put something together for a healthy discussion as to what the forward momentum is. I just didn't know if you wanted me to take the hard line this week with reinvigorating our previous methodology, but you'll notice too that our 90-day past due list has more than doubled since COVID started.
Dan?
Yeah, Mike, I'd appreciate some of your analysis on kind of where we are with our customers and kind of where that fits within what we're seeing from other surrounding communities. So I'd appreciate more discussion on that.
Al?
Yeah, I'd bring it back for some more discussion. I don't think we need to hard toe it, but let's come back and talk about it.
The one thing we've put out on our water bills and sewer bills, and we've done it continually, and we've tried to do as much publicity and different things. The Community Action Center has ways of taking care of those bills, and a number of people have not utilized that. And we would certainly like people to use that because the money is available. It's been provided by the feds. It went to the state. Community Action Center has a way of taking care of that, and they just have to file for it. And so we really want to encourage people to do it.
Sure, and we continue to put on our bills encouraging people to set up payment plans, but it just hasn't come to fruition because there hasn't been a hard deadline, I believe.
Ann?
So I agree. I would be interested in looking at some options, and that's a perfect example of how can, should we have some sort of consequence if people choose not to seek out other help? And I know that sounds really hard too, but how can we encourage our residents who need help to get the help that we know is available? So if there's a way we could look at how to do that without just saying, so continuing the moratorium, but also somehow building in something in there to, try and say.
Oh, I do.
to try to,
I'm
yeah.
already cogitating what my agenda item might look like at the next meeting.
Okay. Nathan again?
Thank you. Yeah, I understand, and there's so many resources available that are not being utilized by individuals, but I also know people who are in need often have several things going on at the same time, more hoops to jump through. It can get very, very difficult, very challenging, but yeah, of course, there's a lot of resources available.
And the Community Action Center stands by to help them through those hoops, and they've done that many times. Eileen?
So this is a question for when we bring it back. What are the city's options for making up that shortfall, for the inevitable shortfall? Are there, that's a question for next time. I'm sure you have a list.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sitting here letting my mouth write a check that I have to cash now. I got a lot of stuff to get for you on the 12th, but we're going to get it. This is an important conversation to have, at least just to get the information out for council to consider and take action the 12th or some future date.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other new business to come before the council tonight? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?